Welcome to the A&E Food Testing Show. Today's topic, accuracy of food testing, a concern. Christopher Snabes is a food technical specialist at the American Proficiency Institute, also known as API. He is among the first in the nation to earn the Certified Food Scientist credential, CFS, from the Institute of Food Technologists. This credential recognizes his knowledge and applied skills in food science. He has been an adjunct professor at North Central Michigan College and has worked in the private sector to improve the quality and efficiency of the food laboratory. He's here today as a lead author of the API study, Pathogen Detection in Food Microbiology Laboratories, and Analysis of Proficiency Test Performance. Now, welcome with me,
Thank you,
Christopher
Andy.
Snabes.
Thank you. Pleasure to speak with you today.
Well, could you add anything to your introduction that might help our audience of 60,000 food production, food quality, food safety, and food security managers?
I think that was very well. I'm also a member of IAFP, AOAC, ASM, IFT, and several other science-based organizations.
Let's begin with a very general question, Christopher. What are food testing laboratories?
Food laboratories can be either internal or company-owned laboratories associated with a food producer or food processor. They can also be external contract laboratories where samples are sent off to be tested. They can also be county, state, federal, or university labs, standardization organizations, various other government labs. Many of these food labs are accredited to the ISO 17025 standard, and a portion of this accreditation mandates that they have to perform what we call proficiency testing on what is listed on their scope at least once a year.
What do these labs test?
Food labs can test a wide array of items related to food, such as food pathogens, indicator organisms that are not pathogens but are indicators of food quality. Food labs can also test for several chemistry parameters, such as nutritional analytes, for example, fat content, moisture, ash, salts, metals. Other items that can be examined include chemical contamination, pesticide residuals, and so on. Each food product from each food processor or producer has their own list of items that are to be analyzed by a particular food lab. Some food labs can also assist in packaging studies, shelf life studies, sensory analysis, new product development. At API, we offer food microbiology and food chemistry proficiency testing for food labs.
Well, Christopher, you headed a report by API that expresses the general concern about the accuracy that these food testing laboratories are reporting to their clients. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
So, Christopher, what is proficiency testing?
API is an ISO 17043 accredited proficiency testing provider. We're accredited by an organization called A2LA. That's the American Association for Laboratory Accreditation. PT is an objective means for measuring laboratory accuracy. In simple terms, we like to say we test the labs that test the food. We supply 2 samples each test event to a laboratory. The same sample gets sent to all other labs who ordered the same kit. We know what organisms are present in the sample and the concentration of each, but the participant does not. It is up to the labs to give API the correct response. We allow labs to use any method they wish. For qualitative analysis, we grade on a proper response of presence or absence and/or identification. For quantitative responses, we grade using z-scores that are based on very tight standard deviations. This is due in large part to the number of participants we have. We publish on our website all of the organisms, the strain numbers, the methods used by participants, and the results. Individual lab results can then only be accessed by that laboratory, and our website is foodpt.com.
Well, Christopher, you headed a report by API that expresses the general concern about the accuracy that these food testing laboratories are reporting to their clients. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that report?
Yes. This report was presented as an abstract in Denver at the American Society for Microbiology on May 20th of this year. And we examined the qualitative results of 4 common food pathogens that we provide as proficiency testing analysts. And those 4 are E. coli 0157H7, Salmonella, Listeria monocytogenes, and Campylobacter. The rate of false positives and false negatives was then compiled over the past 14 years. The study found that, on average, food laboratories report false negatives 9.1% of the time for Campylobacter, 6.6% for E. coli 0157H7, 5.7% for L. mono, and 4.9% for Salmonella. The false positive rate, on average, is 3.9% for Salmonella, 3.6% for Campylobacter, and 2.5% for both E. coli 0157 and Listeria monocytogenes.
Well, Christopher, to me, that sounds like it's plus or minus 95% good results.
Overall, yes, you could say that. It's those last 5% that can have a detriment one way or another to food labs and or to people.
So about these 40,000 food laboratory proficiency tests over the last 14 years, can you give us some more detail about how this study was conducted?
Sure. These results are from participants who volunteered to use our services and or those who use our services to fulfill their 17025 requirements. The 40,000 results are only for these 4 organisms. We offer proficiency testing 3 times a year, and our participants can choose to either test once, twice, or 3 times a year with us. Each sample that we send out consists of 2 samples, and they have to correctly identify which is in each sample. And then we compile those results and publish it on our website.
So the reporting encompasses 2 basic categories, false negatives and false positives. Can you describe what those are and how that reporting is then returned back to you?
So the false positives or false negatives happens either during the laboratory performing the work where they make a mistake, or they do a simple transcription error. For example, sometimes the samples are physically switched upon arrival. Although they're clearly labeled as to which sample is which, not many times, but customers who do make a mistake, they reverse the samples. So they think they're reporting results for sample 1, when in reality they're reporting results for sample 2, and vice versa. That is a mistake. They might do all the correct analysis. However, when they record those results, they're recording in the wrong section. Other times, false negative or false positive occurs could be due to improper incubation time, wrong temperature bath, a wrong pipette dilution, a mathematical error. Sometimes the devices they're using are, for one reason or another, faulty, and they don't know it. So sometimes proficiency testing will bring out those deficiencies. So there's a couple different ways a false negative or a false positive can be reported to us. But the implications of the false positive and false negative is what's important. A false positive has economic ramification for the producer or the processor. For example, if you were to have a semi-truck full of ground beef waiting for clearance, and it's at the dock ready to go, and the lab calls and says, we got a positive in the meat, that meat goes straight to the cooker or gets destroyed. And that has a very large economic loss for the producer. On the other hand, a false negative has obvious implications of potential effects of the health of an individual who handles or consumes the food. They assume it's safe to consume when in reality it may not be. And this can lead to a temporary illness, a long-term illness, and or in a worst-case scenario, even death. This may lead to an outbreak, which in turn can lead to a recall and a phone call or two from a prominent lawyer defending the victims.
Well, Christopher, as you've described the gravity of these results that these labs are reporting, and that 5% plus or minus, can you offer any conclusory remarks about the importance and, again, the gravity of your study and what it means to people that send samples commercially to these labs and how they should evaluate the results that are reported back to them?
Well, laboratories should be very careful when they do their analysis, and they should follow their protocols accordingly. Currently, food laboratories are not required to assess the accuracy or the quality of their tests. Laboratories that use API-PT are doing so voluntarily. So some labs will use API-PT to obtain and maintain accreditation, while other labs use PT as a form of quality assurance. It's important to note that improved accuracy in our nation's food laboratories will lead to a safer food supply.
Christopher, I'd like to thank you for the time that you have given to the AME Food Testing Show to let our audience know about the capabilities of API and the internal workings of this report, and allow you now any final remarks that you have about today's interview and the gravity of this report.
Well, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you and your audience. And if any of your listeners would like some additional information on our programs, they can look on our website, which is www.foodpt.com, or they can give me a call at 1-855-FOODPT1.
Christopher, thank you so much for your time. And if you have any other reports or studies that are relevant to our audience of food production, food quality, food safety, and food security managers, you are invited to return back to the show and update us on your work.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher, and have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.